Hello all you game devs and material heads out there. This is Let's Make Materials, and I'm your host Brian Benson, and today we're going to be making this goo splat. So on social media I had a lot of people contact me and ask me how I was getting this done after I posted it. And I of course want to share with you how I'm doing it, so without further ado, let's throw this away and let's get started. So the first thing you do to make that effect is you come up here to the Edit tab and you go to your project settings. And over on your left side here, you click All Settings. And in your search details, you type Distance. And what you're looking for is Generate Mesh Distance Fields. Now I checked this on already, but when you do, the editor is going to want to restart. So go ahead and do that and come back and join us when you're done. So once that's done, you can exit out of your project settings, and all we're gonna do is go up here to my window and open my modes tab, because really all I want is a generic basic sphere. So now we got a sphere, and in our content browser, we're just gonna right click and create a new material. And we're going to call this material goo splat _matte. And double click it. So now we're in our goo splat. Let me open up so we can see our little preview here. And we're going to start with base color. So what I did for base color was I just used a noise node. So just right click, search noise. So I dropped that in here, and my color is, or my noise is driven by an absolute world position node. So we just type world position in here, we'll find a world position node. Now I use a divide here to scale down that noise so that it fits on the sphere and doesn't look too big for us to catch kind of the differences in tone. So I gave myself a parameter to do so. So I'm gonna just hold down 1 and click, get a parameter, and then right click, convert to parameter. And I'm gonna call this noise scale. And I just started out with something, kind of huge. 30 is a good value that works here. So I throw that into my divide and put that into noise position, and I can plug that into color. And let's see what the game gives us. So we get some noise here, which is what we want. I wanted my noise to kind of scroll and move around, so I decided I would use time. So if you right click time and add that to my world position, right? So it's essentially moving my noise around on my sphere. So I can just add this like this here, and we'll get movement on our noise, which is what I wanted. I wanted to be able to kind of mess with that speed over time, so I gave myself a parameter here. I just added a multiply, so I could kind of scale up and down how fast this goes. I'm multiplying against my time here. And I did it with a parameter, so hold down 1, left click, and if I right click that, convert to parameter, I can call this noise speed. And I just started with something kind of low, like 0.2 here. And just jam that into my multiply. And then place that in my add here. And so now my noise should be moving a little bit slower, which it is. That's what we want here. So because my noise is just black and white, which doesn't really work for my color, I wanted to give this thing some color. So normally I would just end up multiplying this noise against a color value, a vector 3. You hold down 3, left click, you get a vector 3. And I wanted to give myself the ability to change this color, so convert to parameter. And I just called this base color. and I plugged in to my multiply here, and then plugged that into my base color. Now this is gonna be black because I didn't choose a color here. But if we wanted to, we could come in here and go to the default value and choose something, say my purple value that I was using for my color as well. So now we got some color here. But what I did to make sure that the darkest parts of this color aren't just a solid black color was I used a lerp value, or a lerp node, so linear interpolate. And then I plugged my multiply into A, so that'll give us just our base color of the noise multiplied by my base color. And then the bottom value, the base color of this, is going to be the B. And then we can drive how much or how little noise we see by using a third value in our alpha here, and we'll just call this noise intensity. How about that? Noise intensity. And so if I give this a value of 1 initially, it's gonna be just B. Let's drag this into base color. Let me make sure we see what we're doing here. So it's all B, right? Because in lerps, A is 0 and 1 is B. So if this value is 1, we're getting all B. But if we find ourselves somewhere in between, say 0.5, we're gonna get a little A and a little B, right? So our darkest darks are a little less dark now. So that takes care of color for us. I initially, which I think I'm gonna stick with now, because we'll just change them on the fly, set all of these values to 0, and just made them into parameters to give myself the ability to change them later in the instance. So I'm gonna do the same here. So I held down 1 and left clicked 3 times to get 3 constants. I'm gonna convert to parameter and call this metallic. Right click, convert to parameter, call this specular. And then right click, convert to parameter, call this roughness. And I guess while I'm thinking about it, I might just stick some values in here. We do want some metallic, maybe like a 0.5. I think I might want a little bit of roughness, maybe like a 0.2. Okay, so now we're getting some shiny, right? Getting a little bit of shiny here, which we want for our goo. And then I think I'm gonna make my specular something like 5. So that did kind of very little for us. This probably could just be a 1. Let's just leave that as 1 for now. That at least gave us our kind of our shiny tone, which I think is going to be important to our goo splat here. Let's move on to the next part of our tutorial here, which is going to be about our normal map values. So I already have a couple of normal maps that I thought felt like fluids. So I'm gonna go ahead and hold down T and left click and bring in a texture sample and go over here to texture, and I'm gonna put in normal, and I shot out a couple of normal textures when I started doing some experiments on this stuff. So I know normal map 2 is gonna work great for this. So I really want to plug this into normal so we can take a look at what that looks like. And we'll probably see a little bit more about what our values are doing for us now, our metallic, specular, and roughness values. While I'm thinking about it, let's just select all of this stuff and hit C and call this color. That way we can kind of section this off. Oop. That's pretty far away, but whatever, it'll work for us. And let's just call this like PBR. We'll right click, we'll drag select, press C to comment, and we'll just call this PBR. So now those are kind of sectioned off as well. And we'll start our normal section over here. So we got our normal map plugged in. Really what we want is the ability to sort of scroll this, right? So it looks like there's fluid falling. And so I'm gonna add a panner node here. So right click, panner. And we'll just plug this in to there. And we can go, we're gonna add a multiply node and a texture coordinate so that we can scale our texture scale, so we can kind of decide how big or small we want the normal map to be. So we'll use a texture coordinate and a multiply and a constant value that's parameterized, and we'll just call this normal 0, 1 scale. That way we can kind of get ourselves the ability to change the scale on the fly. So we'll set it to a default value of 1. That changes nothing about the texture. We'll do texture coordinate into our multiply, scale into our multiply, plug that into our panner. So we're not panning anything at the moment, and the reason for that is because I wanted to be able to decide what the speed should be on the fly in the material instance. So what I would normally do to do this is right click and look for append, and an append vector lets me choose 2 constants to plug in that kind of get combined to make a vector 2, which this panner node in the speed category runs off of a vector 2 for x and y speed. So I'm going to give myself the ability to decide the x and y speed on the fly in the material instance. So I'm going to right click, convert to parameter these 2 constants, and call this normal 0, 1 x speed. And I'm going to copy this name from here, and I'm going to come down here, right click, convert to parameter, and in my parameter here I'm going to paste it and just change x to y. So normal 1 has got an x and a y speed, and if we plug both of these into our append, it'll fix our error. Now by default, I'm just going to change y's default value to be -0.3, and that will scroll our normal map downward, as you can see here. And that should do it on the material preview as well, have our normal map kind of going down, right? So that's kind of cool. We got kind of the makings of Liquid here right off the bat, which is great. Because I'm kind of the kind of person who wants to do a couple of layers of everything, I will normally double up my normal map to kind of get some more detail in there. So let's just call this normal 1. And let's drag select all the nodes in normal 1, copy, paste them below, and we're going to create normal 2, which is just going to be a second layer of normal, which I think will give us some extra detail here that we will want in the long run. So we're going to just go through here and change all of our parameters to say 2 instead of 1. So we're giving ourselves the ability to change normal map 2's scale and speed. And we'll drag select all of this, hold C, call it normal 0, 2. And we'll change normal 2's speed to be -0.1. And what I want to do is give us the ability to change which normal maps we use on the fly as well. So if I right click, convert to parameter, we'll call this texture in normal 1, normal 0, 1 texture. And we'll do the same here, right click, convert to parameter, normal 0, 2 texture. So now we have both of our normal maps. And the way that we're going to utilize them both is with an add node. So we're just going to hold down A and click. And if we drag our RGB from our normal 1 and our RGB from our normal 2 to an add, it'll add both of them together, and we can jam that into normal map. Now the scale on normal 2 and the texture on normal 2 are not different. We can change that scale later in our map, but you can see we're getting a couple layers, right? One that's a little slower and one that's a little faster in our normal map. So we're getting what we want already, and we'll change these values a little bit later, but for now I think we're in the right spot with this, which is great. So at the moment we've done both our normals, we've done kind of our metallic, specular roughness PBR settings, and we've done our color. I want to get to the sort of crux of this, the splatter portion, but for now let's but just before we do that, let's save and apply this, and then we'll throw what we have on our sphere that we dropped into the level. So we'll drag that over there, and we'll come to goo splat material. If we right click this, we can create a material instance, which is what we want because we want to change those values. Now with the sphere selected, if we drag the material instance into the materials panel, you'll see we have something kind of close to what I was working with before, right? It's got the noise, it's got the normal map, so the lighting response that we're looking for here. What this doesn't have is that sort of splat that I think everyone was really excited about. We're going to get to that here in just a second. Let's just change some values in the material instance to make sure we are in the ballpark of what we're looking for the final. So I want to change normal map 2 to be just a different normal, something that will give us some different feeling here. So that immediately changed kind of some of how this lighting response looks. I want to change our metallic, I'm sorry, our noise intensity to maybe be something like 0.65. So just removing a little bit more of that dark there. I want to make sure the scale of noise 1 is different than the scale of noise 2. So we'll pinch that, we'll make it smaller. So we'll see more of it repeating over time here. I also want to change the speed of noise 1 to be maybe like a 0.5 here, negative 0.5. So it's a little faster than our noise 2. I might change the speed of noise 2 to be something like negative 0.2. So now we really get that kind of liquid falling feeling. Yeah, I think we can stay here with these values. So let's just save that. Take a look at what that looks like in Engine. Yeah, so it's pretty close to what I was showing off on the internet so far. Again, it doesn't have the sort of splat effect that I think got everyone excited. So let's get to that part. So we enabled our distance field. We set up our material to have all the right color. If we go back to our goo splatter material, we're going to work on the world position offset, the sort of vertex offset portion of this. So if we drag select our normal and drag that out of the way, the first thing I did for the world position stuff was I used simple grass wind, which is just a built-in function that comes in Unreal Engine 4 already. And simple grass wind just sort of takes advantage of some noise stuff that's already set up by the engine. So if we just drag this into world position offset, it's going to tell us it doesn't have the info it needs. all it really wants is a couple of constants in wind intensity, wind weight, and wind speed, which I think wind speed would be fine because it's got a default value of 1. But these two need something for sure. What I will put into here is like a 0.4, a 0.3. So like something like 0.4 here, 0.3 here. For my intensity and my weight. Now the one thing it's asking is there any other world position offset stuff happening? At the moment, we don't have any, so let's just put a 0 value in there, right? And that'll get rid of our error. And it's got a default speed value of 1 that's already playing, so let's let that go. So what you're seeing now is some of the verts kind of wobble here, which is really the start to what you guys were seeing, the jiggliness of the splat kind of getting started here. Now I wanted to change this stuff on the fly in the material instance, so if I right click, convert to parameter, I can call this wind intensity, and I can call this wind weight. And I also wanted to change the wind speed on the fly, so I'll create another parameter here, right click it, call this wind speed. We can leave it at a default value of 1 for the moment, but we'll probably change that later, kind of depending on how we feel. And then additional world position offset is what we're gonna add to this to give us that sort of splat when you hit a surface, that I think is what everyone came to watch. So to set that up, we need to use a node called distance to nearest surface. So if you just right click and search for distance, you should see, maybe I'm not am I blind? Distance to nearest surface. And it allows you to place a position in there. You could do some stuff with that, but for what we're doing today, I'm just gonna skip over that part. We want to be able to adjust where the sort of the engine believes that surface to be. So I added the ability to sort of adjust where this squashing starts to take place. Essentially, what distance to nearest surface does is it creates a gradient from the surface to the piece of geometry that's utilizing this material, and as the geometry gets closer to the surface, that gradient sort of starts to get pushed upward, and so as the gradient itself gets more utilized, the more the vertices get displaced. And I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. But for now, I just wanted to say that you can hold down 1 and create a constant, and you can just call this something like surface offset, and this will just be a utility for us if we want to kind of adjust where that sort of fall off starts to take place in the world. So right now we're going to add 0 to that, and that'll be fine. So really we're going to use a minimum node here. Right click min, and we're going to plug our distance to nearest surface in minimum, and the b in this minimum is going to be 0. And then we're going to give ourselves the ability to kind of adjust our strength on the fly with a multiply. And we'll give ourselves a value here, hold down 1, convert to parameter, we'll call this strength. And our initial strength is just going to be a value of 0.5. And we'll plug that in, and what we're gonna do is use this gradient that we're creating here as a way to push out our, if you right click, look for Vertex Normals. So essentially this is saying all of the faces on our geometry, we're gonna push them all away or deform them based on how strong this gradient is. So we will multiply the position of our faces against this gradient, or the direction, I'm sorry, of our faces by this gradient, and we'll reposition those faces based on whether or not this gradient is white or black, or taking effect or not taking effect. So with that plugged in to our additional world position offset, you won't see any change here in the window when this reloads, but let's save. So before we jump back into the editor, let's go into the instance. I just want to change our wind speed and weight. I want to do like a 0.5 here. Let's do like a 0.5 here. I maybe want to change my noise scale to be 35. So a little bit larger. But let's just save this and go into Engine and take a look at it. So we're getting some kind of weirdness with the surface there, but this is starting to be, this is good. This is what we want. Let's rebuild our lighting. So as you can see, as we get further or closer, closer to the surface, we are getting displacement. The sort of, the geometry is utilizing its, the calculation about its distance from the surface as a means to displace the vertices. This is what we want for sure, but the displacement is sort of upward, which is not what we want. And so we're gonna fix that problem now by just going back to the material here, and instead of allowing these values to go positive, we're going to do a multiply here, and we're gonna multiply by a negative value, and in fact we're gonna give ourselves the ability to change this value. So right click, convert to parameter, and we'll just call this surface displacement, and we'll make this a negative value, like negative 0.1. We don't want this to be too high because it can get crazy. If you drag this into your multiply here and then plug this into our world position offset, and we just delete this 0, we don't need that anymore, and we save and let this apply. We go back to our window. Now you'll see that it's displacing downward, which is exactly what we want, right? As we get closer, we want it to stretch itself out, and then once it hits the surface, it starts to bow out like the material splat that everyone kind of was interested in seeing today, right? So we get our kind of splat here. And I just think that's a really cool effect. I'm glad everyone really liked it. I think that's about the end of our video here. There's a bunch of other stuff you can do to make this look awesome, but I think I'm gonna cut it here. If you like this video, like, subscribe, share, follow me on social media at Let's Make Effects on Instagram, Twitter, realtimevfx, ArtStation, and I hope you guys continue to watch these videos. I'm really enjoying myself, and I hope you guys are too. We'll see you next time.